light is always, always changing. And that's one of the beauties of it. Now we find that we say, well, let's take it, make it, or wait for it. We find some days, let's say, well, we want to wait for sunset, or we want to wait for sunrise, or whatever the case may be. But we want to know how light works and how we can manipulate it in different situations too. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Right here, I'm out in the swamps of Ohio, right on the edge of Kentucky. And we've got these beautiful trees, these arching branches and paths going down to the swamp. It's just a really neat area. But how do we deal with light in complex situations? Right now we're out here and we kind of got clouds. So one minute there's dappled sunlight and the other minute there's shade. Now we see that changing actually right now as I'm talking, and it completely changes the tenor because we have a high sun up here. Now if I was doing a nice soft portrait, let's say a lady in a gown kind of walking through this area, this overcast feel would have been amazing in here. Now a lot of times for a landscape we want a little bit more radiance to the light, but we don't want it to be too flat. On the other hand, we don't want it to be too harsh. But there's another thing we can consider in this, and that is these two factors. One is the line and the other is the light. So we can think about the light. Is it specular? Is it, we getting that harsh specular dappled highlight on trees and on leaves and things like that. The other though is how we're framing and how we're using the natural elements to frame the scene in a way that's effective. And so what I mean by that is, let's say we're out here and we're making a portrait or we're making a landscape, or really it doesn't matter what we're making, but we're looking at this scene here. And so I'm looking down this path and we've got this neat path, we got this neat tree kind of going up right over in here. And so there's some framing there. Now this would be perfect for a portrait. You could have a subject walk up here and just kind of wind along this path and we could stand up on the hill. Or maybe we're wanting to do a nice landscape scene. Now in that case, I'm probably going to want to wait until this harsh light down here is diminished a little bit. Honestly, this is probably going to be the most radiant at sunrise or sunset or something like that, because now we're talking about dimension. But if you look at how we frame, you can see how the image changes as we change the position of elements within the frame. And you're probably thinking, well, duh, Gavin, that's just what happens. But if I'm looking at a scene and let's say I'm framing something and there's a real harsh specular highlight on one side, I might just move over or move up or move down or move that out of frame. I might change so that I use these trees to frame my scene. See, the goal is to get our subject to be primary. We want the subject to be primary, meaning the eye should go to the subject. That's the goal of a great image. There's one subject at the end of the day, and we're trying to get the eye led through the scene to it in an enjoyable way, in a way that's visually appealing. So think about what the lines are doing. We're talking really about space, position, line, and tone, but thinking about it in terms of complex scenes. In complex scenes, you often have a lot of foliage or a lot of rocks, or there's a lot of stuff around that tends to be problematic for the scene. Use those things to your advantage. Never let the clutter overtake your scene. Take the clutter and use it for the beauty it is. Because this scene, this forest in here, this area, this is a very busy area, and if we look around here, we can see there is a lot of foliage, a lot of swampiness. It's pretty crazy in here, but we can use it to our advantage. We can think about how we frame and just walk around, like really look at it, and sometimes do it through the lens. I love doing it like this, looking at it through the lens, because we're seeing different elements and how they give different visual tones. So this gnarled tree here, this is a framing element. You could have a person standing here or standing here, and you've kind of got this open space here. So you have a fairly simple scene, even though it's a complex area. Now I can move just a little bit this way and get rid of some of the stuff over here that's getting a little cluttery. So what's happening? Well, we have this gnarled tree, and we have a fairly evenness to this in terms of the green, so it doesn't become too distracting. We could have a subject there, or we could photograph the tree. Now in this case, I'm probably going to wait till some of that harsh specular light that's filtering down through the trees, that harsh sunlight, I'm probably going to wait until that diminishes a bit, until we get a cloud going overhead. And so there's sometimes, we say oftentimes, well, the light wasn't good, the light wasn't good. Light is always good. I love light. light isn't always ideal for what we're doing, but a lot of this, we have this mindset of the light's bad, and sometimes I think we need the mindset, whether it's a complex scene or a simple scene, it's not that the light's bad, it's that we're not utilizing it in the right way, we're not filtering it the right way. I mean, sometimes with a portrait, this actually means using a scrim to filter sunlight, and suddenly that harsh sunlight becomes a golden, luscious glow. Sometimes it means standing under the right tree or putting the right branch in the way. And so we can see as we move around through here that the light is ever changing. We can even see the light changing on this trunk right here as the sun kind of peeks through. And so I could actually sit here with a camera and probably just wait until the light did something that I wanted it to do and find, wow, the light isn't actually so bad. It's actually pretty remarkable. We've got these paths, kind of these tunnels going down through the trees. I mean, if I was doing a portrait, I would just go to town here, but I would wait in this case. Sure, we could modify the light, we could change it around, but I would probably wait until we had a little bit more control over that light. Rather than try and filter it, I'd probably just wait till we had a cloud or it gets a little softer. But wow, it's just, I love tunnels of trees. I love it when trees form shapes around us and they become our framing tools. And there's a lot of that out here in the Ohio, Kentucky swamps. And it's just really, really amazing. If I was doing a bridal portrait or any portrait for that matter, I mean, just the space down here, the lines everywhere. And this is the thing with a complex scene. Yes, it's complicated, but when you have a complex scene like this, when you have all this stuff going on, when you have all these lines, it gives you a lot to work with, because all this detail, these branches, all of this stuff, this is our canvas. And so what we're doing is we're painting with light, but we're painting the scene around us. And that's what separates an amateur from a real master craftsman in photography, is that we can look around and we can say, well, here's what I want to do with this scene, or here's what I need to do 3 hours from now. We can think about the concepts we're working with, and then we can put those into execution and complete the process. It's not so much that I look and I say, well, the light is bad. I say the light is not the best for what my visualization is. And so I always want to think in terms of, what is it? What is it that I'm hoping to produce? And when I look at a beautiful place like this, I think, let's soften up this harsh light. Let's just wait a little bit. And then let's take it. Let's get what we need. Now, if I had to get something right now, I'd find a way. We'd use scrims, we'd use modifiers, we'd do what we had to do. But I'm always going to go for the best light that suits my visualization and for my plan. And if we do that, if we have that visualization in our mind's eye, if we have a plan, chances are we're going to be able to execute it and make a beautiful image. Let's try to not think of light as in terms of good and bad, if we can. Obviously, don't get me wrong, a portrait in harsh noonday sun, a portrait in a situation like this right here, is not going to look very pretty. But as the image maker, as the craftsman, we have to think in terms of not what's wrong with the light, but what's wrong with how I'm taking the shot. Just like almost anything, the result of our image crafting comes down to us. It's our action, it's our knowledge, it's our visualization, it's our understanding of the craft and of understanding how to make a great image, how to take it, make it, or wait for it, how to make the light by modifying it, come back later, or take what's there, move around, use the natural features and the branches and the things around us. What do we need to do in any given scene, whether it's complex or simple? And those are just some things to think about today as we analyze our light, our tone, our zones, and bring it all together to make a great image. Take care.